starlit crown arches over the Puget Sound. Berenice's hair drapes the horizon to the full air. There is my lucky star tonight, the seventh sister of the Pleiades, walks in beauty like the night. Oh, that is best.
From our compound, from the West Coast to the East Coast to worldwide, both on the internet and terrestrial radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark.
Well, we are back with Tom Whitmore. And Tom, James Kirschbaum, my news director, has like 3 or 4 questions to ask you. Is that okay?
Sure. Hi, James.
Hey, Tom. How you doing, buddy? My first
Fine,
question is...
thank you. How are you?
Good. My first question is, our oceans, lakes, atmosphere, our planet life, all that together, what kind of effects do you think that these crafts have when they're in our atmosphere, our lakes and our oceans? What kind of effect do they have on these things, with the byproducts that they give off?
Well, that's a good question. There have been some notions in the past, based on certain UFO reports, that UFOs like to be close to power lines and they like to be close to water. There had been reports of UFOs going into or coming out of lakes at times, I believe. Now, we also are aware that Mr. Luis Elizondo and company had explained that the craft that they have observed, particularly the Navy, have observed these craft being able to operate in space and in the atmosphere and underwater as well. The problem, from my standpoint, in understanding what effect that has on our environment is I don't know how those UFOs operate, so I don't know what kind of radiation they may or may not be giving off, and I don't know what kind of other effects could be occurring. There are superficial theories like the UFOs operate in a kind of a plasma bubble, and the reason why they're able to do some of the things that they do is they're not undergoing resistance from the atmosphere or from the water, and that's about as much as I can tell you about that.
Okay. And where do you think is the new Area 51 or the new Wright Pat today?
Good question. Some years back, there was some notion that there is an Area 51 base or installation in Utah. But we've even heard rumors that there have been UFO landings and meetings in the Pacific Islands. So I don't hear a lot about other installations besides Area 51. There are contiguous areas, I believe in Tonopah in Nevada, to the Area 51 and the Atomic Test Range, the Nevada test site, and then you have Nellis Air Force Base. Maybe perhaps there's something in Utah. I will say this. In some documents that I had been going through just yesterday, the Woods Private Collection has certain documents that had been produced in the late 40s, and the government at that time was planning on building underground installations with the idea of manufacturing aircraft and presumably rockets and missiles underground, based on what they had learned that the Germans had done during World War II in having to go underground to produce their technology as they were being bombed by the Allies.
Wow, that's interesting. Speaking of underground work there, what's your thoughts on Phil Schneider and some of his claims about underground bases and some of the stuff that he talked about before his mysterious death?
Well, we hear these rumors, and as far as I know, they are just on the rumor level, and I do note that Richard Doty has stated in an interview publicly on an internet radio show that Phil Schneider is not authentic in his claims. And I believe that Phil Schneider was claiming an underground base in the Dulce area at the Archuleta Mesa in northwest or northern New Mexico. And I've actually been there. I've driven up to that area and I've looked at the mesa. There have been some, according to Doty, there have been some special operations activities going on the Archuleta Mesa on the basis of training and certain types of special operations activities. And then there have been the rumors of these various underground installations connected by underground tunnels. Now, these claims are fantastic. They're really outlandish, but at the same time, I think that we should note that the tunneling technology is there. For example, there's a tunnel under the English Channel between England and France, for example. And here in Washington, D.C. and in other major cities, there are subways. You go on the subways here, and there is a lot of earth that has been tunneled out. These places are big. So I think the capabilities and the technology is there to do the underground work. But actually, what is actually there, and if it's related to this alien technology, I really can't say.
Right. You was talking about Eisenhower later and meeting with the aliens possibly. Wasn't there a time when he was on vacation in Palm Springs where he disappeared for a while, and that was supposedly when he met with them, or is that just all hearsay?
That's the story. That's the rumor. The cover story was that he had a chipped tooth and had to go to the dentist. And, we all know that the press follows the president like a hawk. They follow his every move, and these daily logs are kept of, what the president does. So everything the president does is followed and documented. So when he disappeared overnight or for some period of time, there was a lot of inquiry and a lot of interest in what was going on there. And those rumors originated with that. And again, it's rumor because we have no documentation and we have no confirmation other than the stories that we've heard.
Right. Okay, well, thank you very much, Tom.
Sure, James.
Now, Preston Demmett claims there's off of the California coast tunnels that run from California all the way to, Area 51. What's your feeling about that? Is it possible?
Well, like I said, there's apparently, there's obviously terrific tunneling technology. Now, you look at the distance between Britain and France, you can see the White Cliffs of Dover from Calais on a good day. But tunneling from Palm Springs or wherever in California to Las Vegas or to Area 51, or, you see these maps of alleged tunnel connections. These are very, very long distances. I really don't know. I mean, there are books that have been written by a gentleman about this whole question, and he has some documentation about it. And I just don't know if it's possible or practical to build tunnels for these tremendous distances. I mean, there are such wide open spaces in the American West.
Oh, yeah, that is so true. Another thing, underground bases, Mary Joyce, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's going to be coming on here and back on my show in April. But the last time I had her on my show, she was talking about, the underground base in her state, North Carolina, that they've been expanding it drastically. And at one point, when you went on Google, and you looked down and what you could see, which was very little because they censor it, but there was, I got sent pictures of where, like, tarps covering something, like maybe they're tunneling for dirt or anything. But she claims she had information that they're, like, really expanding this. She also claims that at that base is, aliens are sharing technology. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Oh yeah, I mean it's all along with the general trend of the UFO rumor mill, and we do have people coming out making these claims. Unfortunately, they usually don't have any documentation. They don't have anything to support their claims. So I have to look at it with an element of skepticism that we're just hearing a story with no support.
Unfortunately, I hate to say it, in ufology, isn't that quite often the case?
Yes, too often the case. and it's frustrating, and people get frustrated with this because it's a frustrating field. It's a difficult field. And I feel that it's entirely necessary to have a high tolerance for ambiguity, for not getting answers, for not being able to see things in black and white. And there's a whole lot of gray area in this field.
Oh, yeah, a lot of gray. Now, yourself, have you ever seen a UFO or had a family member that claimed they were abducted or anything like that? No, and I have not. I seem to be the kind of person that you can be fairly confident that if you're around me, that nothing will happen. Interesting.
So if you want to feel safe, then hang out with me.
Okay. Well, if you don't want to get abducted, get a hold of Tom Whitmore. Okay. Become his buddy. Now, the thing I'm going to ask you, all these documents that you've gone through and read and studied, has there been any of them that really scared you after you read it?
If true, the spookiest one is the so-called burn memo. And that is allegedly, and it's a question document. I'm not saying that it's true. It's a question document, but it implies that something was going to be done about President Kennedy. And I don't want to start, a rumor or a story that the CIA plotted to kill Kennedy. I don't know that, but it is a document that surfaced with the Timothy Cooper cluster. It is burned. It's partially burned and was supposedly, recovered from the burn bag, and that's a spooky document.
How about any document?
If there's any truth to it.
Yeah. Well, we never know. That's the scary part. How about anything where it looked like maybe invasion, or anything where these alien connections or recovering craft, it shows where they could be a major threat to our military and to the civilians of the world?
I haven't seen anything to that effect. If you look at the public documentation that's come out from the Air Force and even from some of these other groups that have studied the UFO problem in the 50s, they were saying publicly that the UFO phenomenon was not a threat to national security. And there was a time in the 1970s, if you inquired at the Air Force, they would explain that they terminated their UFO Project Blue Book with the Condon Report, and that UFOs do not constitute a threat to national security. And publicly, that's all that we have. Now, behind the scenes, we hear other things, but publicly, they've always taken that position that UFOs are not a threat to national security.
Now, did they actually continue on with Project Blue Book under a different name? Because I can't believe that after investigating, either they turned up no UFOs ever existed, Or if they did turn up that UFOs did